What's going on, everybody? Jay Howe here. In this video, I'm going to show you how to gear up your Templar for solo play and optimal ways to gear your Templar for greater rifting. Now, there's a fairly specific way as far as how you want to gear your follower and some of the roles that you want to go with. I'm going to show you the alternatives that you can use and probably the ideal way to do it. Now, obviously, there's going to be two key points that are absolutely necessary. That's the Templar relic, which says your follower cannot die. Now, unfortunately, I don't have one yet, but not dying is crucial because the reason you're going to do this, especially in most builds, is that you're going to make use of the Unity ring. Now, putting a Unity on your follower while wearing one yourself is actually going to split the damage between your follower. The fact that your follower can't die, that means you have a 50% damage reduction, which is a really nice thing to have. There are certain builds out there that go full-on damage, and don't worry about this. So you can go with another ring here, such as a Bull Kathos, but those are pretty much two staples to most Templar gearing. Now, on to the weapon. Now, there's two different ways you can go. An Eun-Jang-Do is very important. I have another video on the channel showing this in action, and it's very important because of the secondary effect. Attacking enemies below anywhere between 17 to 20% freezes them for 3 seconds. Once you get a Rift Guardian below 20% in this instance, it's almost a permanent freeze, which is great. And you want to make sure and have increased attack speed on your follower in different areas as well. Now, ideally, and this is before I had modified a few things, you want to roll lightning damage on there before you roll attack speed. If you have both, that's great. But having lightning damage on there is crucial because of the upgrade to the Wyrdward. Now, the Wyrdward ring used to roll fairly low chance. On the secondary here, where it says lightning damage has anywhere between a 25 to 35% chance to stun for 1.5 seconds. This is really good because you're going to be hitting with the lightning damage from the weapon itself as far as the base damage goes, which means that you now have a chance, up to 35% chance on attacking, to not only freeze them when they're below 20%, but when they're above that, you have a chance to stun them with lightning damage. Now, if you're on a Greater Rift boss, there is diminishing returns and other things that could go on, which brings up this item here, the Dovu Energy Trap, which it says increased duration of stun effects by anywhere between 20 to 25%. So stacking that on top of the 1.5 seconds that's already there is very important when you're gearing up your follower. Now, for a long time, we've been using the S of Johann, which is still a good option because it's going to bring enemies into a centralized area. And that's good while clearing, but it seems to be most of our time spent is going to be on the Rift Guardian or Rift Boss. And this is where it really comes into play. So having your Wyrdward there, plus your Dovu Energy Trap, plus lightning damage on your weapon is really good. Now, an alternative weapon that you could use is an Azurewrath. Now, here you see in the secondary, you have anywhere between a 20 to 25% chance to freeze anyways. This is really good. Now, you can see that I have added lightning damage on here, and that's why you saw it equipped initially. Now, that again plays hand in hand with the Wyrdward, so not only do I have a 33% chance to stun with lightning damage, I also have a 20 to 25% chance to freeze. So it's kind of compounding the effect there, in that I'm giving myself a higher chance, and it's not restricted by a certain amount of life. So this does come into play. If you stick around for a few more minutes, I'll actually show you that on a Greater Rift boss, and you can see that the Greater Rift boss does not get a lot of attacks off, starting from 100% health down. Now, another item that's also really good, the Freeze of Deflection. Blocking an attack has a chance to freeze the attacker for anywhere between 0.5 to 1.5% chance. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but over the terms of a Greater Rift and how long it can go, that actually comes in very nicely. Now, the other thing that you want to keep in mind is that on your shield, you want to roll block chance on there. Now, you can roll block chance on your shield, and you can also roll it on your Templar relic. So having that on there in both instances is going to give you an extra chance to freeze the attacker. And that goes hand in hand with everything else going on. You have a chance to stun it with lightning damage. you have a chance to freeze it, and you have another chance to freeze it with the Freeze of Deflection. Having crowd control at high greater rifts is at a premium, so having your follower geared properly is very important. Now, a couple other things to keep in mind when you are gearing your follower: rolling stuff such as increased attack speed and cooldown reduction can help quite a bit. Getting off more attacks with your Azurewrath or your Eun-Jang-Do is going to come in quite handy when you're attacking multiple times with those chances to freeze or stun your enemies. The other part about the cooldown reduction is that the cooldown reduction does affect your Templar skills, so having cooldown reduction on there also benefits your follower as well, whether you're running a Templar or an Enchantress. So those are a few key points, and there are a couple of other items out there, and they do work very well. But if you're playing something like a Barbarian or any other class that's not using, say, the Focused and Restraint rings, a Unity is going to go a long way, and this is one item that you can swap out. Like I said, if you don't have those, an S of Johann is still a good option, but this is pretty much the one way you would ideally set it up, with going with one of those two weapons, and then utilizing the new Wyrdward, the Dovu energy trap, to increase that stun chance, and just really good synergy all the way around. Now, the other part is if you're running something like a Bane of the Trapped, using something like Intimidate is really good, because enemies that hit or are hit by the Templar are slowed by 80%, which can help proc your Bane of the Trapped, which is a nice thing to have there. Same thing here, the cooldown on the charge. Having your Templar rush in and stun all enemies is another added benefit. And depending on whether you need the extra resource, you can go with Inspire, or if you like the fact, especially on certain characters, you like to have enemies knocked back around you, and you get that extra heal there, you can run with that. Generally, for most classes, especially depending on how well or how much you're utilizing your resource, this is a good option here. So that's it for the gear part. I'll show you a little bit of footage of this particular setup with the Azurewrath in place as opposed to the Eun-Jang-Do, and I'll show you what it looks like from the top of the health bar all the way down, as opposed to, say, the Eun-Jang-Do, to where it only really comes into effect unless you're utilizing the Wyrdward and you have lightning damage rolled on here. So I know that if you have this gear, you might have rolled it one way or the other originally, so the next time you pick it up, if you didn't already know this, hopefully this can help you moving forward. So if this did help you, or you like the video overall, be sure and hit that like button below, because that is always appreciated. But let's get into the action part and see this and how it works. Alright, so as I wait for the Templar to come back alive there, I wait, and then now I'm going to stop, and you're going to see that the stun effect, it's not permanent between the Azurewrath freezing plus the Wyrdward stunning. However, it is quite frequent. I'm standing there, and there's not a lot going on. Depending on the Rift Guardian, this could mean the matter of saving yourself millions and millions of damage. And it could also mean avoiding something like that right there, which hits somewhat harder. We're on a fairly low greater rift. But as you can see, that if your follower gets to them, it's stunning them, it's freezing them, and it's locking them down. And it's not a bad thing to go with. Now, obviously, if they spawn a lot of adds, you might find yourself a little bit more trying to get your follower over there, although you can't really control where he goes. But as you can see, that the Rift Guardian is being stunned, and this is using the Azurewrath. Now, depending on which one you prefer, you're probably going to stick with the Eun-Jang-Do, because if you roll the lightning damage on there, it's far more than worth it. If you don't have one, having an Azurewrath and being able to utilize that as well is also very important. So I'll finish off the Rift Guardian, but as you can see, utilizing this build and this setup can help you immensely in greater rifts. And hopefully this has helped you guys out. Like I said, if you like the video and if you like what you're watching, be sure and hit that like button below. Be sure and subscribe for more future Diablo content as well. Going to be bringing a lot more as more patches and more information comes out. As always, I appreciate you guys watching. Till next time, happy hunting. See you again.